Hey folks, welcome back to another video. I want to give you an update in the leaking fork situation on a Concours 14 because I have rectified that as of yesterday into today. If you didn't watch that video already about what was going on with them, I'll post a link in the description below. But otherwise, I think most of you have seen a video where I explained the situation that I had leaking forks, at least one leaking fork on this one, the right fork, in the trailer heading up to the big trip in Maggie Valley and North Georgia. So this is what I found when I took the right fork apart yesterday, which I kind of forgot how to do it. I had to kind of review the service information, and we'll get a little bit more into that here in a second. What was causing the leak was not a seal failure in as much as the oil seal goes. You know, the oil seal, the one that's further up into the tube there. I have my suspicions about the dust seals, but we're going to get into that in more detail here in just a sec. The problem was that there's damage to the actual chrome bar, the piston, if you will, of the fork itself. And that damage was in the form of a line. And I have some B-roll when I took it apart and put that fork lower, which, of course, the axle part and the chrome bar fork tube itself is one piece essentially pressed together. So I put that in the vise over there. I circled that spot with a marker so you can see it. And that line is pretty deep in some spots. And I know that because how I remedied this was to essentially sand that scratch out using progressively finer grits of wet or dry sandpaper and WD-40. I've had success with that before, and then you polish the crap out of it with like 000 steel wool. Works really well, and it worked pretty well in this spot too, in this area. The trouble is it was so deep in one particular area that I ended up sanding it so much that you can actually see a very small amount of the copper that they lay on first to help the chrome adhere to whatever they're chroming. That's bad, but there's really nothing I can do about it, and the surface is smooth, so it went back together. As of right now, it's not leaking, but I haven't run the forks up and down at all or ridden a bike, so who knows, right? The reason why I couldn't see it when I was on the trip was that it was kind of around the, I would say, the tire side, not the full back side, but the tire side on the front side here of the fork. So let's say, you know, if you're looking at a clock and you're looking straight down at it, it would be about the 4 o'clock position. I just couldn't see it. And so with something rubbing in there, whatever it was, causing that groove, it was enough of a space there between the oil seal and that groove to let the fluid come out. So why didn't it come out when it was just sitting here on the floor? Obviously it didn't happen between rolling it out of the workshop garage here into the trailer. It must have been existing for quite a while. So why didn't it leak there? Well, I'll bring you up closer and we'll explain why. I probably should have done this before I put the fender on, but you'll get the idea. Okay, I went ahead and took the fender off so you guys can see this because it's impossible to see it with the fender on. I tried, so I said screw it, took it off. It's only 4 bolts. We're going to do an establishing shot here to just give you an idea of essentially the position that the front fork upper is in relationship to the lower, the fork tube. In certain positions because it's relevant to this particular description. I have also marked the line on the inside here, which I'll show you with a flashlight, approximate length of the total groove that was in this fork tube, and also put a circle around the deepest spot there where allegedly it's down to the copper. Okay, so right now this is on the center stand, so there's minimal amount of pressure down the front end. It's, you know, when I put it back down after jacking it up from the engine, because obviously that's the jack point's a stress member. I wish mine had a stress member. Anyway, up in the air and bringing it back down only drops down about 1/4 inch maybe. So maybe when it's under full, you know, weight of the motorcycle front and rear, maybe it's down to about here. It's not that much further. So picture that basically. So your starting point would be about right here. Now in this upper tube here, this bore here is the receiver section or the bore diameter for the dust seal. This narrower one is the area for the oil seal, where that gets banged in with the appropriate fork seal installation tool, which I do have, and then you have the spring clip on top of it, and there's a steel washer on the underneath it for support. kind of like a backup ring, but that's not terribly important. So this is the level of where that oil seal is. So the top lip of that oil seal, the business end part of it, would be about right here. Maybe a little lower, all right? Or upper, depending on how you look at it, because these are inverted. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and zoom up a little bit more, get you in a little better position, and I shall explain what happened. I hate these LED lights. They basically bite the big weenie, but I'll put it on low power. So I think you can see the blue line here. Starts about right down there, down here. Look down, and then it's up, goes up to about right up, almost up to where the dust seal is now. So right to there, about right there where you can see that circle. Let me zoom up a little bit more. That circle is the spot. You can kind of barely see it where, well, allegedly it's worn down due to sanding down below the chrome level, just barely. It is a very small area. You can't feel it. It is perfectly smooth. You can see some light scratching, of course, you know, with the light reflection, but hell, that's pretty much every fork tube. But that's it, from here to here. That's about the length of the total amount of scratch. Down here, the scratch was not so bad. It got progressively worse as it got up to the top, and then it got pretty thin up in here. But this was the main spot. This half-inch, 13 mil section or so, right here was the worst spot. So now we'll zoom you back out. Now, when this thing's in the trailer, and it's under the weight of a motorcycle in a chock, so maybe the dust seal edge is down about here. This would be with the weight on it. Now, I'm only pulling this damn thing down just a little bit. I do not crush the front end on these, as I explained in the other video. I grab it from the crash bars, mainly only to hold it in the chock. And it gets pulled down mainly from the back. So, but it does pull the front down a little bit. So maybe 3/4 of an inch. And so if it starts here, let's say it was about here in resting position, and then we pull it down about 3/4 of an inch, maybe up to 7/8 or so, it would be about right here. That would put this oil seal about right there. And if you put this oil seal about right there, you're going to be in the exact position, the scratch position, or the start of the scratch, and also coincidentally where the scratch is the deepest, right in this area, or was the deepest. It puts it right there, right there. So essentially what it does is it parks this oil seal over top of a scratch, a deep scratch in the fork tube with all this oil sitting on top of it, and that has a place for it to go, to escape past the dust seal and out onto the ground, which is obviously what it did. So that is the explanation as to why, when it was just lightly, and I mean lightly, you know, clamped down or strapped down into the trailer with the chock, it started to piss. Now that's also why it didn't piss so much after I started riding it. Not just because of that tampon I shoved up in here, you know, when I was up there. I pulled the fender off and stuffed some tampon up in there like I showed you on the Sabre. I don't think that did anything except maybe catch a little bit of the oil that was coming out while the suspension was in travel. If you're not parking it over that spot, then it has a less likelihood of dumping oil out, because that's the worst spot. So it's going past it, and it's a lot lighter of a groove down in here, and virtually none up in here. So under retraction, like acceleration, the thing pulls up, you're completely out of the scratch. In braking, you go past that bad spot and you're in a better spot, but you're not parked there. And when you're in nominal suspension weight, you're not parked there as well. That's why it was not pissing out while I was riding it, and only while it was sitting in the trailer, because again, we were parked right there. And yes, I know my reflector is broke. I just did that when I was cleaning the front calipers. While they were off, you know, everything was apart, I decided to do my patented method of caliper cleaning. And of course it got away from my gloved hands and swung down and smashed into this reflector. So I found a pair of them on eBay. I'm going to replace this one and have a spare. I got all sorts of outfits on for this video, huh? This is what happens when you shoot them over a period of a few days. Anyway, now that we know what happened and with that oil leak on the right front fork, I'd like to know why it happened. So we're going to go over to the bench. We're going to take a look at a dust seal and an oil seal that's been removed from the right side. And I have a couple of theories about that, and they also kind of tie into the fork oil that I had used when I did the fork seals, I don't know, 2.5 years ago or so. Let's go over there and take a look at them. Okay, oil seal, dust seal. These are both from the left side. The oil seal goes like this, with this side actually facing down. So this is the quote-unquote top of it. We're not going to be really looking at that all that much. I want to show you the dust seal instead. So here's the top portion of it, or the part facing downwards, because again these are inverted. The first thing I noticed was that this lip kind of looked a little chewed up. I mean, these are 2-year-old seals, and they're Kawasaki OEM. And I'm like, no, never mind this. This was something else. When I was taking off those wire ties I had on there with the rag, my rag condom, I had already had the fork compressed after I disengaged the top part, and I was reaching in a small confined area trying to get those wire ties on. I actually accidentally clipped that. It has nothing to do with it. So I'm looking at this going, this does not look exactly right. And as I showed you in the B-roll there, on taking the left side out, that gunk that was up inside here and up to the oil seal on the left side was just packed in here, really. Not packed like in solid, but you know, when I wiped it out, it was just a continuing flow of that material in there. It just looked like shit, and it still looks like shit. Now this is the right one, but still, I wiped this out too, and I'm like, what is going on? It almost looks like the rubber is starting to deteriorate in the thing, to be honest with you. It's just a gut feeling based upon how it looked. And so I'm like, well, the other problem I have with this is, let me stand it up on here so you can see. I don't really like the design of these dust seals. The dust seals have, switch pointers here, the dust seals have a little space inside here that shit can accumulate. You have this one lip right here, which is kind of it's supposed to be a sharp edge lip, which would of course be facing the business end, because remember these are inverted. And then the second layer right here, which is a more flat section, so it has essentially a 2-stage protection, I guess, from debris getting in there. So if it gets past here, it should get caught up in here or something, and then not make it past this section. It's not exactly flat, it's a little tapered, but you get my drift. I just think that is just a spot that you can, you know, just inviting crap to get inside there, especially with the fact that this just looked kind of chewed up, almost like it was deteriorating prematurely. And so does this edge here. I mean, it just doesn't look all that good. Looks like it's been breaking down. And I'm thinking to myself, why? They're 2 years old, and they're Kawasaki OEM. And like I said, personally, I don't think the design is very good, but that's just me. Okay, so let's go back over there. So, oil. I got gas. It segues into this a little bit. I mentioned before I could not remember how to do this, so I reviewed the service data. I should have reviewed the video. And when I looked at the video this afternoon, because I was just kind of looking it up in case I wanted to use some clips in B-roll in this video, and I realized that I had used 5W Honda fork oil when I did these seals 2 years ago. The reason why I use 5W is because that's what the service manual says to use. And I forgot all about that. And right now there's 10W in here. And I said, whoops. It's Drag Specialties 10W. I get it from Partzilla. Reasonably priced, and I've had really good luck with it. But I completely had forgotten it takes 5W. So then I sat there and went, well, you know what? Maybe that's better in this situation, because we've got the left side fork tube, which I polished out the same way as I did the right side fork tube, if I failed to mention that before. I polished it out the same way, but with nowhere near as aggressive as far as the grit goes. I mean, it cleaned up with some 2000 grit and some steel wool, no problem. It's like mint on the left side. The right side is what I've described before as being basically scrap, in my opinion. It needs to be replaced. With that left side the way it was after cleaning it up and seeing that dust seal rather, and then seeing that oil situation, I couldn't help but think, I wonder if that Honda oil wasn't rated for this for some reason. I don't know. This is mineral-based oil, this Drag Specialties. I'm not sure what that Honda oil was. I'll take a look at the video again because I do have a shot of the bottle. I don't know, maybe there's a problem with it. I got the Honda oil because I had it in stock already from a couple of years ago, and I figured it'd be the same, but something caused, in my opinion, something caused the dust seals to fail prematurely or partially fail prematurely, in my opinion. That's my opinion only. I think the dust seals were essentially crapping out prematurely, allowing crap up inside there. Enough of it built up. Something got locked in that spot over on this right side and to a degree on the left and just kept grinding away at that one spot. What it was, I have no idea, but with that dirty area that came out in a rag on the left side tube that I showed you before, I'm thinking it has to have something to do with it. It has to, because these are OEM sealed, unless I got bad seals a couple of years ago. There's no way to tell. Maybe they were just manufactured poorly. I don't know. These seals, again, are OEM. They are made in Japan according to the packaging. And so hopefully that they're going to last a little bit longer. But we'll be changing this right one out again anyway. Not the seal. We'll reuse the seal unless something trashes it. But I got 2 more. That's why I bought 4. That's one reason why I bought 4. Because I didn't know what to expect when I took this apart. So I have 2 more brand new oil seals, but these are the new dust seals. We can reuse those if once we get to a point where we have to put another fork tube on this right side. I would really like to do that before the trip in July. Maybe I'm just kind of overcomplicating it and making it a bigger deal than it actually is. I mean, when do I ever do that? But in this case, I would just feel a little bit more comfortable. I'll keep looking, but anyway, that's what happened with this. The mystery again is what got up in there, and that's the only mystery that we have at this point, because otherwise we know everything else. Did the fluid participate in it that I had in there? I don't know. Never know. But right now it's got 10W. It's going to stay 10W because, oh yeah, because we have some shenanigans going on with these tubes. Maybe 10W is better for it anyway, being a little bit thicker. It would have less of a tendency to want to escape from any little anomaly in there than 5W would, theoretically. I'm kind of glad I used it in the end, and it's not going to affect anything negatively. As far as handling goes, it'll be fine. Man, I need a haircut really bad, but I don't have time today, so it'll be tomorrow, I promise. Anyway, let's go over some lessons learned. I think we always need to learn a lesson from something when we do a repair. There's some sort of an occult or weird or, black magic voodoo type of a thing going on a machine. This kind of falls somewhat in that category, at least, although we at least know what happened. We just don't exactly know why. Here's the first lesson that I learned from this, and I'll give you 3 recommendations regarding like these fork seals. The lesson I learned was don't focus directly on one particular part or component when you have a failure, especially when you're on the road and experiencing several mini meltdowns behind the wheel of your truck towing a trailer with 2 bikes that both have some sort of leaking fork situation. Because I automatically zoomed in my brain, focused right down on the seals failed. That segues into the 3 points. First of all, if you've got something like this, and you've got relatively new seals in it, let's say you farmed it out to a dealership or an independent, and 6 months, a year, year and a half, 2 years after you put fork seals in, the forks start to leak. It's unlikely it's going to be a seal failure unless they used aftermarket seals, some Chinese piece of shit junk seals. If they use good quality OEM seals, you most likely have the same situation that I have here, some sort of new onset damage to the chrome bar, to the fork tube itself, and that's causing a little space for the fluid to leak out. I again was focused completely on the seal, not even considering that there could be some scratches in that chrome bar. So the second point is, if you have 12-year-old seals, 10-year-old seals on forks, and they start pissing, it's most likely not something to do with the chrome bar, although it could be. I think the seals are just wore out or they're cracked, because the rubber only lasts so long. And the third situation would be if you have seals that you just put in or had put in and they start to leak like almost immediately or within weeks or something, it's quite possible they were installed incorrectly, upside down, damaged while installing or partially damaged, and then just the action of them doing their job made them essentially crap out. Those are the three things. So essentially what I was referring to before in regards to my mini meltdowns on the way up and thinking about a resolution up there, that resolution might have been, and I was considering bringing the bike over to Waynesville Cycle Center at a recommendation. It was a recommendation from one of our riding buddies that was already up there. So anyway, up in Waynesville, North Carolina, they got this pretty nice dealership. It's a multi-line dealership called Waynesville Cycle Center. When I was in the middle of driving up having a mini meltdown, I called them and said, if I bring my bike up there and I provide the seals because they didn't have them in stock, would you change them out? And they originally said no, but then they said yes. So here I was thinking, well, once I get up there, I'll have Partzilla overnight me some seals where we are staying in Maggie Valley. And then I'll ride the bike down 17 minutes from where we were staying to Waynesville to drop it off at the dealership there. So I would have probably paid $100 and something for overnight and seals. The seals would have been, I don't know how much. I can't remember what I paid for these. Figure $250 probably in seals and shipping, and then the labor for having them do it. And then of course I probably would have been into it $500-600 or more, and then it probably would have leaked anyway, because again, this brain didn't even consider that there was a fork tube issue. I was only considering that it was a seal issue. And that's my point here. My point is, if you have a situation like this happen while you're on the road, where you're riding or trailering, or even sitting in your garage, and you're like, man, I need this bike in 2 days for an out-of-state trip, you may be able to take care of it in that time frame by tearing it apart and maybe sanding down some of that fork tube to get that particular groove out if that's the problem. And it most likely is if it's got relatively new seals. Again, I didn't even consider it. So lessons learned are, don't hyper-focus on one thing. Just like in any repair, don't hyper-focus. I hyper-focused on the seals, thinking I could just bring it to a dealer up there. I would have spent what, $600-800 total probably? Maybe 5-6, I don't know. And it would have leaked anyway because of that groove in there, that damage to the chrome bar. And who knows if they would have even mentioned it. They might have said, he wants new seals in, we'll throw these new seals in. We get paid labor for it, Bob's your uncle, out the door. And again, it probably would have just kept leaking. Maybe not quite as bad, but most likely quite as bad. Don't hyper-focus. I hyper-focused on that, and I completely lost all perspective as to options. And one of the options could have very well been, if I had seen that, I could have literally gone down to a big box store or a hardware store, gotten some wet or dry sandpaper, and while the damn thing was in situ, take the fender off, put it on the center stand to take the load off of the front end, and sand that groove out as much as I could in situ. Wipe it all down really good. I had rags, I had brake clean with me, and probably solved it, at least temporarily, right then and there if I hadn't gotten so focused on the fact that I need the seals replaced. Oh my God, the seals are bad, and I just put them in 2 years ago. So that's the lesson I learned from it. I hope you guys learned something from this as well, because I sure as hell did. I got to keep reminding myself that even though my nerves are completely shot, as I talked about in that video about the trip and the forks leaking, from what I used to do for a living all those years, I really gotta sometimes take a step back and look at the bigger picture and take a breath and go, all right, let's take a look at this analytically and systematically instead of just saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, all right? That's what I learned, and that's what I'll hopefully apply in the future. So as far as your future goes, stick around and you see more crap like this and other stuff that's coming up on the channel, you know what to do. You're smart. I don't need to explain it to you. So with that, we'll just say thanks for watching. Don't just repair, restore. Catch you on next video.